When we say Jewish state, what we mean is the national state of the Jewish people. But if Jews want to come here, any Jew, they're welcome. We embrace them.
Israel touts itself as the only safe haven and protector of all Jews. That is, unless you're black. In 2012, Israeli journalist Gal Gabay set out to discover why the birth rate among Ethiopian immigrants had plummeted by nearly 50% over the previous decade. What she ended up uncovering was a troubling web of deceit, lies, and systematic racism against Ethiopian Jewish women. Gabay's investigation revealed that Ethiopian women immigrating to Israel were being injected with a long-acting contraceptive without their knowledge or consent. These injections, administered every 3 months while the women were still in transit camps in Ethiopia, continued after their arrival to Israel. Some women claimed they were threatened by Israeli doctors who told them they wouldn't be allowed to immigrate if they refused the injection, while others were simply told they were receiving a vaccine and given no details on the side effects. Even those who knew they were being administered birth control say they weren't offered any other alternatives to the drug they were given and were discouraged from having a large family in Israel. The drug in question, Depo-Provera. It's widely considered a last resort contraceptive due to the potential consequences of its use, including bone density loss if it's used for more than 2 years. Of the 5,000 Israelis injected with Depo-Provera in 2008, 57% were Ethiopian Jews. After a civil rights group accused Tel Aviv of racism, the health ministry ordered doctors not to renew prescriptions unless they were convinced patients understood the ramifications. An investigation by Israel's State Controller's Office that concluded in 2015 claimed that Ethiopian women were not coerced into taking the shots. How the probe arrived at that conclusion raised many unanswered questions, especially since the State Controller's Office failed to interview any of the women who had received the shot. Additionally, 2 Israeli health agencies under investigation in Ethiopia were not legally required to disclose any information. This apparent effort at curbing the growth of a population is reminiscent of the US Eugenics programs that took place between 1929 and 1974, when over 7,600 people were forcibly sterilized, with black women disproportionately affected. Doctors in North Carolina performed the procedures without genuine informed consent from patients, often misleading them into believing the procedure was medically necessary or required for welfare benefits. Jews of African descent have long been the target of racism and discrimination in Israel. When the 1950 Law of Return granted every Jew the right to settle in Israel, Ethiopian Jews, known as Beta Israel, were initially deemed ineligible. It wasn't until 1973 when they received formal recognition and began immigrating in 1984 through secret operations carried out by Israeli intelligence agency Mossad. Another point of controversy is the status of the Falash Mora, Ethiopian Jews whose ancestors converted to Christianity. Although roughly 25,000 have been allowed to immigrate, they must undergo formal conversion upon arrival, while thousands more languish in transit camps, some for over 20 years, awaiting Tel Aviv's promised relocation. Meanwhile, in the 1990s, it was revealed that blood donations from Ethiopian Jews were routinely discarded over HIV concerns without informing the donors, sparking national outrage. Tel Aviv's racially biased practices towards Ethiopian Jews raises serious questions about its claims to be a nation established as a refuge for exiled and persecuted Jews. If it selectively applies its promise of sanctuary, can Israel truly claim to be a safe haven for all Jews?